A ground invasion of the Islamic Republic of Iran by the United States has already been decided at the highest level, with key objectives for a large-scale military operation identified. Moreover, American experts claim that under the guise of diplomacy, Donald Trump has already begun that very invasion. The day before, on Thursday, the US president announced that he is suspending strikes on Iran's energy sector for another 10 days until April 6th so that peace talks can take place. Trump claims that it was supposedly the Iranians themselves who requested this. But Tehran and even the mediators in the negotiations insist that Iran did not ask Trump for a pause. On the contrary, Iran completely rejected Donald Trump's demands and even mobilized 1 million citizens into the army and the ranks of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps to repel a possible American ground invasion. Moreover, the US suddenly announced the deployment of another 10,000 soldiers, and now the Pentagon even hinted at which specific targets the US Army is ready to seize first. That's what we'll be talking about in this episode. My name is Alexei Pechi, let's discuss this topic together. But before we start, I ask you to support the work of this YouTube channel by liking the video, subscribing, and maybe becoming a sponsor or making a donation. All the links and details on how to do this are in the description of this video. I will be grateful for any support you can give. In addition, subscribe to my Telegram channel Pechi News, the link to it is in the description of this video. So, several American publications citing their sources in the White House and the Pentagon have stated that the decision for a US ground invasion of Iran has already been made, and everything else is just the fog of war. For example, Trump announced that at Iran's request he postponed strikes on Iran's energy sector for another 10 days. But even according to the intermediaries in the peace negotiations between the US and Iran, not to mention Tehran itself, claimed that Tehran did not ask Washington to suspend strikes on the country's energy facilities. Trump stated that his 48-hour deadline, which, let me remind you, expired back on Monday, is now being extended all the way to April 6. Well, in the end, officials from Tehran stated that Iran did not request any 10-day pause. They rejected Trump's 15-point plan to end the war and denied involvement in strikes on their own energy facilities. They simply said, "What pause, Trump? What are you talking about? At first you boldly talked about a 48-hour ultimatum, and if not, you would strike the energy sector." 48 hours passed and Trump said, "I'll give you another 5 days. If nothing happens in these 5 days, then for sure I'll strike." The 5 days end, and Trump says, "I'll give you another 10 days. This is just some kind of joke already. In 10 days he'll say, "All right, I'll give you another 5 days." According to the intermediaries, the US proposed a 15-point peace plan, which basically involves lifting the sanctions, in exchange for concessions from Iran on all disputed issues, including its nuclear and missile programs, as well as support for regional armed groups: Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and the Axis of Resistance in Iraq. Iranian officials have already demanded that the US ease its excessive demands before they even agree in principle to a meeting to discuss a possible ceasefire. They have also ruled out discussing Iran's missile program as a starting point for negotiations and do not want to commit to ending uranium enrichment forever. They say, well, maybe for some time. Mediators say that the chances of a successful ceasefire remain low, since Iran and the US are putting forward maximalist demands that are unacceptable to the other side. As a result, the risk of a ground war is increasing. The Pentagon is considering sending an additional 10,000 troops to the Middle East to expand President Trump's military options. A contingent of 10,000 ground troops will include infantry and, importantly, armored vehicles. It will reinforce the ranks of about 5,000 Marines and thousands of paratroopers from the 82nd Airborne Division who have already been deployed. At the moment, the exact location of the troops in the Middle East is still unclear, but most likely they will be within range of Iran and Kark Island, which is an important oil export hub off the coast of Iran. Earlier, let me remind you, Trump repeatedly stated that he would open the Strait of Hormuz with or without the help of allies. And now the White House is not denying such a scenario. For example, let me quote the Deputy Press Secretary of the White House, Anna Kirilova. "All statements regarding the deployment of troops will come from the Department of Defense. As we have already said, President Trump always has all military options at his disposal." But Kark Island is just one of the possible options for a U.S. ground operation. According to Axios, Trump is considering a number of military escalation options involving Iran, several of which are connected to strategically important islands in the Persian Gulf. The importance of these islands is due to their proximity to the Strait of Hormuz, and in some cases their role in Iran's oil industry or military defense. Trump is aiming to seize and hold these specific Iranian islands. The Pentagon is developing military options for delivering a decisive blow in the war, including ground and bombing operations. Among the plans under consideration are projects concerning various islands in the Gulf, and so next I suggest we look at why the US is so fixated on these islands. Let's examine their significance. First, there's Kark Island, located about 24 kilometers off the coast of Iran, which accounts for about 90% of the country's crude oil exports. The island, which is very important for this region, has reserves of fresh water. This sustains its permanent population and key infrastructure. Thousands of people live on the island, most of whom are oil workers. The deep waters around the island allow large oil tankers to dock. The capture of Kark Island could quickly halt Iran's oil exports, a significant portion of which goes to China. But invading the island and holding it would put American troops under more direct Iranian fire. The second target is Larak Island, which is located at the narrowest point of the Strait of Hormuz and is a key export point for Iran's oil industry. Iran uses Larak Island, which has a network of bunkers and attack boats capable of destroying cargo ships, to monitor the Strait of Hormuz and maintain control over it. Capturing Larak Island could limit Iran's ability to pursue ships in the strait and lay mines, and could also help the US break Iran's control over ship movement through the strait. The third target is Abu Musa Island and the lesser Tunba Islands around it. They are located near the western entrance to the Strait of Hormuz between Iran and the United Arab Emirates. And although the Emirates claim these islands, Iranian military forces have occupied them by force for 1,000 years. These islands serve as Iranian outposts, equipped with missiles, drones, and mine-laying equipment. So, capturing these islands would give the US strategic control near the strait and limit Iran's military capabilities in the area. And here's an interesting point. On Wednesday, the Speaker of the Iranian Parliament, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, stated that Iranian intelligence believes Iran's enemies, with the support of one of the countries in the region, are preparing an operation to occupy one of Iran's islands. And most likely, Ghalibaf was referring first of all to the United Arab Emirates and their claims to Abu Musa. And now the Emirates have already stated that they are ready to send their naval forces to the strait for a joint operation with the US. Another target is Keshem Island. It is the largest island in the Persian Gulf, located off the southern coast of Iran. It is on this island, in underground tunnels, that anti-ship missiles, mines, drones, and other strike assets are stored. I'm sure you've seen those Iranian videos where they show long tunnels where all this is stored. Well, most of those videos were actually filmed on Keshem Island. Keshem was once a tourist paradise thanks to its natural beauty, but the Iranians have turned it into a large military base. But you have to understand that the island is huge and capturing it would be very, very difficult. But in the meantime, Iran has announced that it has mobilized more than 1 million of its citizens in case of a US ground invasion. This was reported by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. According to them, there is a growing desire among Iranian ground forces to give the Americans hell on Iranian soil. At the same time, according to the Tasnim agency, the authorities are receiving a massive influx of applications from Iranian youth who want to join the ranks of the Basij paramilitary militia of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and of course in the regular army as well. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. If you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so with any donation, a paid subscription or sponsorship on YouTube, or through the PayPal platform, crypto wallets. Basically, all the details are provided. How to do this? All the links are in the description of this video. I will be grateful for any support you can give. And subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pechi News. The link is in the description of this video. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.